Start off covering the arrest that was made with the fatal crash. This was April 27th. This was about 6 a.m. at 18th Street and 2nd Avenue. An arrest warrant was issued on Thursday. That was for manslaughter. There were two alternate counts: first-degree manslaughter, second-degree manslaughter, vehicular homicide, vehicular battery, reckless driving, and I think there may have been some other misdemeanor charges in there as well. That warrant carries a $50,000 cash bond. The suspect in this case is a 17-year-old. Because of the seriousness of his charges, we're able to release his name. Essentially, it's a direct file from adult court, so there'll be a proceedings later where he potentially could be, that case could be moved back to juvenile court. But at this point in time, he's been filed, or the charges were filed in adult court, so we can release his name and information. His first name is Damion, D-A-M-I-O-N. No middle name. Last is Laurelez, L-A-U-R-E-L-E-Z. 17, from Sioux Falls. He was arrested Thursday afternoon just before 3 p.m. In the 1800 block of East 6th Street. So we had quite a few witnesses that were able to basically place him as the driver. We had a lot of surveillance cameras that were able to place him as well. The speed, I know initially we had said witnesses estimated speed around 100 miles an hour. The investigators were able to roughly determine the minimum speed between 73 and 78 miles an hour. A lot of the time with these reconstruction, I guess the accident reconstruction, what they'll do is go through and look at the cars and basically do a kind of a whole breakdown of the mechanical and damage to that. In this case, there was so much damage done to that SUV that the investigators were unable to perform that, to know if something was working or something wasn't working. So surveillance cameras in the neighborhood were able to help provide that minimum speed determine that minimum speed. Essentially, it was kind of a time distance. So they looked at where the vehicle was, how long it took to get from point A to point B. And there's a couple of different cameras that they used for that. So I don't know that we'd be able to exactly determine what the speed of the vehicle was. Obviously, it was at a very high rate of speed. Where it crossed those cameras was that 70 mile an hour to almost 80 mile an hour range, and obviously we had witness statements as well. So I think that's really all the information we have, but I can answer any questions or try to.
What, do you have any information leading up to the moments before the crash? Why are they going that fast?
The why, I don't have an answer to that. Why they were going that fast, I have no idea. There had been a house party. All of these kids were at that house party, and they left, went to a restaurant to get food, and they were heading back to the party when this happened.
Where was the party?
That was in the 1800 block of East 6th Street.
So at his residence?
Yeah.
Was that his car?
It was somebody else's vehicle, and I had a question from somebody earlier that if that was stolen. It was not stolen. Somebody else at the party, it was their vehicle. They essentially loaned it to Damion.
Now do we know where the people were seated within the vehicle?
I think just through interviews, the detective was able to make that determination of where the placement was of everybody inside the vehicle. Some different surveillance cameras were able to capture different images, and I think everything seemed to line up, but everything was consistent with what the witnesses inside the vehicle had said where everybody was seated.
Sounds like a lot of people packed into one vehicle. And were there 4 people up front?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I'd have to dig through the reports to find that information. I just know they were able to identify where everybody was seated, but I can't recall off the top of my head where everybody was.
Could the fact that there be so many people packed into one vehicle have contributed somehow?
I guess it's possible. I mean, not everybody was wearing seat belts. Some people were wearing just a lap belt. I know that information. I think really everything comes down to the speed of the vehicle and then the impact. And once that happened, it pretty much sent everything into chaos.
Most people were thrown from that, weren't they, Sam? Do you remember?
I think a couple of them were.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly, but I think there was a lot of people that were not wearing seat belts.
Well, there's a capacity for that vehicle is probably what, 7? I mean, how many sets of seatbelts are in the car? Can't
I don't have the accident report with me. Was it a Durango? Is that right? So, I mean, yeah, maybe at the most, I guess.
I don't know if that has a third row or not.
Trying to remember if, I think it did have a third, just from the conversations I had with the investigator, I think it had a third row. And I don't know the middle row, if that was like a bench or bucket seats. Obviously that may change. You know, you could have one extra person essentially in there with the seatbelt, but, yeah, I can't remember. I think it had a third row though. I think there was people in the back.
Oh, I think max, we're talking about 8.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the complexity of the accident reconstruction and why it was so hard in this case? Again, you mentioned the vehicle was so badly damaged.
That's pretty much it. I mean, a lot of the time when they do this reconstruction on this thing, that vehicle inspection is a key component. And they're able to rule out if there were issues with mechanical issues. You think about braking or acceleration or something like that. But in this case, the damage was so extensive that they were not able to do that. They couldn't tell what was working prior to that accident, and just because of the amount of destruction that happened after, when they reviewed it, everything was pretty much destroyed. So there's a lot of different things that they look at. Sometimes it's, just generally speaking, they'll look at tire marks. Sometimes they can get information from that. Sometimes if there's gouge marks in the road, sometimes they can get information from that. But a lot of that is based off of the damage to the vehicle. They can use different formulas and physics to help determine speed with that. Newer vehicles have that, basically the onboard computer that can help provide that. This was just outside of that range, so we weren't able to get any information from that data recorder. But there's a lot of different things. The newer cars, they can get a lot of information from that data recorder, but then also it's just old school, looking at damage that was done, what worked, what didn't work.
Do you put this in the context of, the mayor went on Facebook Live this weekend, yesterday, talking about reckless driving, crazy driving, stupid driving, to use his words. Do you put this in that category, just stupid?
I'm not gonna use those words. I guess, you know, when it comes to bad driving, people make choices. You know, it's not like we have a whole rash of cars that have problems and are causing acceleration or causing drivers to swerve in and out of traffic. Some of it may be younger drivers, like in this case, a 17-year-old that may not have been that experienced. Other times it's people that are making a choice to drive fast, to drive recklessly, and who knows the reasons. I mean, we could speculate all day why they choose to do that, but I think really what it boils down to, it's that responsibility of the driver to follow the rules, and those laws are there not just for the safety of the people in that car, but for the safety of everybody else in the roadway. We've had countless incidents of crashes. Typically they're high speed. Sometimes you have the recklessness that's factored into that as well, but they'll crash into somebody else that's just driving along doing what they should be doing. We've had injuries, we've had deaths that have happened, but really all that comes back to the responsibility of the person operating the vehicle, whether it's a truck, an SUV, a car, a motorcycle. they have to have that responsibility and realize that there's consequences, and sometimes that involves injury or even death.
Impairment involved here?
You know, in the affidavit, it lists out, I think there was a very small amount of alcohol, 0.047% of alcohol by weight, and then a small amount of Delta-9 THC and carboxy THC. I don't know if that had a factor in this or not. I didn't see any charges resulting, like related to the impairment or anything like that, so I would imagine that that probably wasn't necessarily the case in this incident.
Why wouldn't there be charges for that?
You'd have to ask the state's attorney's office for that. You know, we prepare the affidavit and we work with the state's attorney's office. When it comes to those charging decisions, they're the ones that would make that decision. So they're the ones that basically said, these are the charges that we want. So if it was just a normal probable cause arrest, then the officers would make that determination. But anytime we have something, a serious case or something that's outside of that window, kind of that immediacy within a day or two, then the charging decisions are made by the state's attorney's office.
Are there potentially charges against the homeowner? I mean, the host of this house party, sometimes that, is it a parent?
Yeah, I mean, that would be another decision that would be made by the state's attorney's office. I haven't heard if there's any discussion about that. I just don't have any information on that, but it's a possibility.
You don't know if there are adults present, or?
I haven't seen anything in the reports related to that house party, so I don't have any information. I can't speculate whether adults were there, whether they were not there, what was all involved with that. To answer your question, there's a chance there could be some charges, but I don't know if there's been any investigation into that point or if that's something that they are even considering.
You said earlier it says residence. The charged was arrested at his residence, the house party's at his residence, just so I make sure I got this right. But we don't know, I mean, who's the head of household? Do we know this information, or is it not in your reports, or would that be a charging document?
The owner of the home, or that's not listed in any of the reports that I've seen. Everything that I've seen is related to the crash, and so there is a little bit, excuse me, there is a little bit of background information, but it doesn't go into depth about the owner, or if it's a rental house, who the renter is, or who the responsible person is, or the circumstances surrounding that party. I think some of the kids had mentioned that there was a party at that home, and then that kind of lays out the case, how everybody got there, and then we're in the vehicle. So I would assume it would be a separate investigation that would kind of tie hand in hand, but everything that we've had so far has been related to that crash. If that makes sense. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. On to the log. One aggravated assault. We have, most of those are reports, people threatened, but we did have one that resulted in a stabbing. Let me get that pulled up. This was Saturday afternoon, about 4 p.m. About 4:15 p.m. This was in the 3000 block of West Russell Street. We had three guys, basically. We had two guys came to confront another person. It was over some money issue or perceived issue between the two of them, or between the three of them. There was a dispute that led to one guy, we believe, holding down the victim and another guy stabbing the victim. The victim had wounds to his upper chest, neck, and head area. He was taken to the hospital. The injuries were later described as non-life-threatening, which is good to hear. He didn't have a whole lot of information on the suspects, but we were able to kind of figure things out after the fact, and had two people that were arrested. And I don't have the time when they were arrested. Wait, new reports that just showed up. Let me just double check. Anyway, we did have 2 guys that were arrested for the aggravated assault. Okay, that one doesn't have anything. So I'll have to, the reports are still coming in, but I can give you the names. Let's see, the first one, his last name is Lloyd, Loyd. First is Anthony, Anthony. Middle is Wayne, Wayne. He is 53, from Box Elder, South Dakota. Just the 1 count of aggravated assault. And so this would have been, he was arrested Sunday afternoon. I don't have a location on that.
2 L's, 1
1 L,
Lloyd? Okay.
Loyd. And the other person, his last name is Taylor, Taylor. First is Derrick, Derrick. Middle is Vermon, Vermon. He's 36, from Sioux Falls. And he was also arrested on Sunday afternoon. Any questions about that?
So, did Taylor have 1 aggravated assault?
Yes,
Okay.
both of them was just the 1 count of aggravated assault. Burglaries, no arrests on any of those. They were basically houses and apartments. Did have another building that was entered. Disorderlies, really nothing much from there. A lot of reports. The embezzlement was a car that was loaned out. The intoxicated subject, that was a report created in error, so I don't have any details on that. Didn't have a chance to get to the larcenies. Most of those are shopliftings. Rape and sex offenses are all reports. And vandalisms, I didn't have a chance to get to those either. We had a few, 3 different weapons violations. One of them was a shell casing that was found. Believe that may have been related to a past gunshot call. They weren't sure on that one. Sunday morning, there was a car that was found that had been shot. That was in the 3500 block of South Larch Avenue. Officers found some blood in the area, but were not able to locate a victim at all. Nobody was inside the car. The owner of the car was located and wasn't involved, so we're still trying to figure out who was involved with that, but we didn't have any reports of gunshot victims showing up to the hospital.
So there were no bodies found in that car?
No, nobody was in the car. No bodies were found in the car.
Okay.
And then the last one, that was Friday night. That was in the 2600 block of East 8th Street. There was some gunshots in an apartment hallway, but no injuries at all were reported. No arrests on that.
So back to Larch, were there calls for reports of gunshots?
I didn't see anything. And I think I think they were able to figure out that the car had traveled to that location where it ended up, and at least one camera they saw there had been some damage on the vehicle, so it's possible. I think that's kind of what they're thinking, is that the shooting, the gunshots to the car happened somewhere else, and that it ended up on Larch. But it's a little bit of speculation at this point in time.
Okay, and you said there was maybe some blood found on the scene. How do you guys find out if somebody was then indeed shot? Are we assuming that the blood is coming from
We don't, I mean, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to figure out, you know, I guess, kind of looking at that situation, if you have damage to a car, that there's obvious bullet holes in a car, and then you see some blood, the assumption is that somebody would have been struck by a bullet. We haven't been able to confirm that. We're still trying to figure out who was in the car, and then obviously check on them to make sure they're okay. Anything else?